Welcome to Breaking Barriers. You know your path. We know the obstacles, and we can teach you how to tear them down. And now your host, CEO and founder of Adapting Social, John Vigero.
All right, guys, so welcome back to Breaking Barriers. I'm honored today. With me, I have Priyanka Poddar, which, Priyanka, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I really appreciate it. Priyanka is a entrepreneur who has an architectural background, actually, that has now gone a baker, right, for the past almost 12 months. And we're super excited about that. And, we were just talking before the podcast got started, and you were sharing how, being an immigrant, migrating to this country, being a woman, the challenges that you faced, nonetheless of starting a business in the heat of the craziest pandemic the world's ever seen, right? So for people that are out there that are like, tell us a little bit about the start of your journey and how we got to this point first. So tell me how you started and where we are today, and then I'm gonna dive a little bit deeper in there.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for having me, John. I'm very excited to be here. And my name is Priyanka. I started Knead Some Love NY in the global pandemic from my apartment kitchen with $175 and change.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy when people think about, oh my God, how did you start this? But that's honestly true. It was literally in my apartment kitchen. We all had downtime in the pandemic, and I've always had a passion for baking, and especially desserts that I grew up eating in my country. I'm a first generation American Indian, so for me, Indian sweets are my weakness. So I started literally. I was in the kitchen every other day because we had so much downtime in the pandemic, right? We were all working from home, so I started experimenting, baking, and I literally started taking photos and posting them on Instagram. And I gotta tell you, that was my journey. That was the inception of an idea, and
Right.
that was the beginning. Literally, I can't tell you how many people reached out to me, and I obviously posted on a personal account, and I can't tell you how many people reached out to me saying, oh my God, do you sell these? And I was like, wait a minute, I don't sell anything. I'm an architect. Like, I build buildings in the city. I don't know what you're talking about. And that was the journey. That was the beginning of this little, it was a seed back in the day.
Right.
And I'm very grateful for, I would say, social media, because that's kind of like really helped me. I've leveraged that, and it's really helped me build something that was so small and such an idea to what it is right now. And of
Right.
course, like there's a long journey that we have to do. This is only the beginning. Like you said, it's gonna be a year in March.
Congrats, let's go.
Thank you. But I'm very excited for this, and I'm so grateful to have found my passion, because I quit my job to do this finally.
Wow, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, honestly.
I was just going to ask you that. So now you did the full-time switch, so you jumped.
Correct.
And now you're fully, boom,
I'm
some
fully
love.
invested, all in, no shortcuts.
I love it.
Yeah, I gotta tell you though, John, I'm actually I'm very grateful for the fact that I started this when I had a full-time job, because it
Right.
really taught me the value of time and how I can maximize productivity in a very short period of time, because
Right.
I had a full-time job and I was doing this as a side hustle back in the day. So for me, I would bake after work, and I would like wake up early in the morning. So I kind of learned how to work under pressure. And
Right.
I think I'll always take that with me through my journey.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so awesome. And one of the things I want to talk about real quick, so to elaborate, right? So first of all, congratulations on your first almost full year. I know in business that is no easy feat to achieve. Business is obviously has a lot of trials and tribulation. So congratulations on that. That's amazing. So with $175, you started everything up, which is awesome. Now I want to talk about, is this something that because this is a big deal, right? To quit a job. When I started Adapting Social, I was 17 years old, so I didn't have like that big real world pressure yet. I was still in high school. I did have a job when I switched, just so I can cash flow the business. I was just putting everything I was making into Adapting Social at the time. But when you finally, for your position, right, you being an architect, right, in the city, obviously there's an abundance of schooling, training, and it takes a lot of courage and to be brave to say, well, I'm going to ditch what I know and go be adventurous somewhere and explore somewhere that I don't know, right? And that's why it's so funny, like when you think about, housing or architectural stuff, like when you think about like even just like people like who want to buy their first home, they actually look at entrepreneurs as a way higher risk when they're giving mortgages than they do for somebody who has a steady job, right? So
this podcast is sponsored by Hatteras, a leader in print-based communications, with services ranging from high-impact direct mail and packaging to retail graphics and environmental branding. Hatteras helps global brands engage with their target audience through the power of print. Reach out to them at hatteras.us for help with your next print project.
You went out there, you're being adventurous. So what was it in your mind that clicked in and said, okay, you know what? I'm leaving this comfortable, good job to jump into this? What was like the key ingredient to making that happen?
Okay, yeah, that's actually a really good question. So I will tell you this though, that when I started this business, right, I didn't ever think about how to sell. I think my goal has always been what it would solve.
Right.
And this business, even though it's a dessert business, we do Indian fusion desserts that come from my culture. The whole idea behind starting this is because I found a niche in the market. In the pandemic, I'm a sweet tooth, my husband's a sweet tooth, and as a family, we love eating sweets. But then in the pandemic, we try to look for anything and everything that's available, and everything on the market is saturated with chocolate. Whether it's dark chocolate, white chocolate, chocolate.
Right.
And I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, I have a passion for baking. I come from a culture which is very rich, but why isn't there anything on the market that is unique?
Right.
And that was my aha moment. And because I understood that this market really, there is a gap here. And I knew that I could probably fulfill that if I put my 100% into it.
Yes.
That's how it started. That's exactly how it was. This is how it started. So because I didn't focus on how to sell and what problem it would solve, right? I would say the following and the sales were almost very organic. So in that case, that was my aha moment where I really felt that, okay, you know what? If I need to take this ahead, and with the traction that I was getting and I was gaining, I couldn't keep up with the demand. I couldn't work just 6 hours a day and bake 8 hours a day. I needed to give 100% of my time.
Right.
And that's when this happened. And I just said, okay, you know what? I really have to quit my job. It's definitely a very big risk. You probably know, like as an architect, we go through years of training. It's kind of equivalent to doctor's training.
Right.
You're trained for 6 years, and then you have to like do your preschooling and everything. So it's a lot of education that's gone into it. And I gotta tell you, because I'm Indian American, I 100% got lashback from my family. My parents did not support me. Because in India, if you're not a doctor, engineer, or lawyer, you're nobody. It's like it's like the same,
Right.
I told my parents first that I really want to get into this baking, and I really want to create Indian fusion desserts for the audience here, and I really want to grow something. They were like, "Are you kidding me?" And I said, "No, I really want to do this." And in their mind, they're like, "You're a professional. You have a full-time job. Why do you have to do this?" And I said to them, "This is my passion. This is what I want to do." And I'm so grateful to have followed that, stuck my ground. I didn't listen. Of course, there's adversity everywhere, but I didn't listen to anybody. I just did what I wanted to do. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to do that, because I'm here today, and I'm now they see me creating something, and they see me succeeding towards my vision. And I think that's the biggest victory for me as an entrepreneur, because I really think that my journey has not been easy, but the steps through the way, it makes it worth it.
Totally. And you know what? I got to give you a lot of credit. I work pretty big in the Indian community, and specifically with restaurants. I work with a lot of doctors, and I know the standard that Indian culture holds to what you said, which is like getting a great job in one of those professions, right? So not only, and I want to unpack that, because so many entrepreneurs, when they want to start something, like I can use my experience too. Like when I was starting my company, I had people who were naysayers and people who were, are you crazy? You're not going to go to college? Because I didn't want them going to college. So I didn't take that route. But, what I respect about you tenfold is that, again, from your family / parents to, people probably as your colleagues and professionals, there's a lot of pressure of their opinion. But their opinions don't pay your bills or have you pursue your dreams. Only you can do that. So it's awesome that you silence the outer noise and focused internally on which route you should go. And I think too many people allow that to happen to them. And that's why I wanted to unpack that for a second. Because when you want to start something or you want to do something that's bold or brave or out of the box, the reason why most people do not give you their blessing or have doubts is because they're putting their unexpressed and their own limiting beliefs that they have for themselves on you. And sometimes, not saying this particularly your family, but sometimes that could be your family, that could be your friends, that could be your spouse, and they know the limitations at which are in their head. And it's so awesome that you were able to distinct that and move forward and not allow that to trap you. You broke through that barrier, which is awesome. So for everybody listening in, this is a great lesson that, Priyanka's sharing here, because again, it's like you have so many different things that happen in your life and people that, judge, have opinions, have whatever, and some of them are your family, right? And, you have to move through the noise. Because you know what? At the end of the day, you would never regret trying something. You can always go back to being an architect anytime.
That's exactly what I always tell people. And like you're saying, I'm so glad you're like highlighting this and unpacking this right now, because I can't tell you, I was at Smorgasbord and I actually sold my first year at Smorgasbord, which is New York's biggest food festival. It runs through the summer. And I can't tell you how many men, women, people of color, they came up to me and they said, how did you do this? Could you work with me? Could I work with you? Could you we just want to be trained. Can you how did you live how are you doing this? And
right.
I'm telling you that for me is empowerment, because I'm an immigrant. I came to this country. I came here to study. I got my master's in architecture and I started working here. So I've been here for over a decade, but I'm still an immigrant,
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of that. So I always tell people, don't give up your dream. If you have a dream and if you think that you can do it and it's in you, take the risk, because it's going to be worth it. And I'm a living example of that. Like, I quit my job. I'm doing this right now. People think I'm crazy. When I told my company I'm quitting my job, they were like, are you going to make money off, selling Indian donuts? And I said,
right.
you're going to see. And I'm glad I did.
Let's go. That's amazing. Another thing I want to unpack though, so obviously 12 months in, it's awesome, right? Or approaching 12 months. So obviously the beginning phase of any business, it's getting the name down, it's getting the brand down, and then it's also, how do I make money, right? Because passion doesn't always pay the bills. One of the funniest things that I always say to people, I love what I do very, very wholesomely, and I'm obsessed with what I do, in all honesty. So, but some people say, when you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. Now, there's all these different ways to look at that, but I think when you love what you do, you have to fight for it, right? So it's not always a walk in the park.
Dr. Joe is an expert with the leading residential solar company in the country. His passion to help others, combined with the goal of having the world run on the sun, can change how our planet is powered forever. It costs you nothing and can either totally eliminate your electric bill or at least cut it down significantly. It's free money. Go to www.drjoeknowsolar.com to see if you qualify for solar and help make the world a better place.
So I want to know a little bit about, so obviously when you started to, so for people out there, they're like, hey, I want to start a business. I don't know what to start charging for pricing. I don't know how, I'm going to start making money. How did that develop for you? How did you say to yourself, and what was your plan of action with okay, I'm going to start charging this. I'm going to offer it on my website, or I'm going to go to these places. How did you start to develop the business acumen side of this, business development for you?
Sure. So I can tell you this though. When I started this, like I mentioned, I had a full-time job. So I really started with a different approach from where I am right now, which is I started selling to coffee shops and local coffee shops in my neighborhood or in and around. I'm in New Jersey and New York, New Jersey. So in and around New York, New Jersey, I started approaching them. And I'll tell you the way this kind of started. I would actually cold call because I was desperate. And I knew I had a winner. I knew I had a really good product, but now how do I market it? I'm brand new. I'm a newbie. So I literally would cold call cafes and say, hey, you know what? I'm happy to drop off samples. Could you please try them? This is a very unique product. It's nothing you've ever seen on the market. And it comes from a culture which is super unique. And of course, they didn't get back to me. But the ones that did, I'm still working with them today. And that's how I started initially. My route was very different. I didn't have the capacity to sell direct to customer at that point, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it was me selling it to a business, which is a coffee shop or a donut shop or a bagel shop or whatever. And I think that kind of grew my audience because I
Right.
started seeing people loving the product. People, I would see them reordering every week. And I realized that, oh my God, I have a winner here. And if I want to grow this, I have to sell direct to customer. And that is how I started selling at Smorgasbord. So Smorgasbord was a whole different story. Uh, Newly incorporated business. I went to do a tasting. They always do a tasting. So I met the founders. We did a tasting, and they were blown away. And that was my
Right.
first last summer at Smorgasbord, and I have sold out every weekend at that
Wow.
fair. Yeah,
Wow.
like literally, at around 2, 3 in the afternoon, I would sell out, and people would come, and I would have like a sold out board, and people would be like, "You sold out again? Like we came all the way." I've had people come from Philadelphia, from Virginia, literally
Wow.
just to these donuts. I'm telling you, and I think that was my first experience of direct to customer, and I
Right.
realized that that impact that you create when you talk to your customer directly and talk about your story and talk about the product, you can't compare it to when you sell it to another coffee shop because they're not going to talk about your product, they're going to sell it, right?
Totally.
And that's basically how I started realizing, okay, that's my business plan. I started small, I took baby steps, and now I really got to take that leap.
Right.
And my leap then became shipping nationwide.
Mm.
So to reach a larger audience, I started shipping nationwide. To date, I've shipped to 48 states, 2 more to go.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's exciting.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's crazy though. I've shipped across the country. These make incredible gifts for the holidays, for people's birthdays, for surprises, and just people who want to indulge and enjoy something different. So that was my next step. How do I reach an audience which is not just local, but across the country? Because when you do that, right, you're opening your footprint. And
Right.
then there's nothing stopping you. That's the ultimate. So that was a risk, actually. I gotta tell you the story though.
Please, yeah.
When my first shipment was to Florida, and I had never shipped in my life before, and I didn't know what's gonna go into the packaging. I didn't know anything, and this was a risk. I gotta tell you, and I was praying to God when I shipped it that it reaches in one piece, or
Right.
it's going to be the most embarrassing thing my business is ever going to go through. And to God's grace, with all the packaging and all that effort that went into that one box, the first shipment, it was a success. And that was, and I still thank that customer because she kind of pushed me
To
to
do-
ship her box. Because
Right.
I was scared. I was just telling her, I don't ship. I don't know how to ship. Like, I don't know. I don't have any experience in this, right? And
Right.
she pushed me. She told me, please, it's it's Friendsgiving. I really need this in Florida. Please. And she pushed me, and I'm so grateful she did. I still talk to her about it. It's unbelievable.
That's amazing. You know what? Listen, again, I want to unpack that too. So for anybody that's actually listening, that right there, like, is such a profound statement because I think when you're doing something in the beginning, the customers are always going to lead the way with what they need, right? There's going to be different extensions of, different products, services that come from your customers' requests. And for people who are open-minded, I think it's such a benefit that you said to yourself, hey, this customer wants this. You were very transparent, and we're like, hey, I don't ship. But now because this one customer, got you out of your comfort zone and said, hey, like, just do it. Now you're talking about 48 states with opportunities to expand to 50. This could really shake out to be huge, right? So for people that are like, creating services or whatever, I think one of the things that is so underestimated is being able to take a risk like that, because you could have sent her that and everything in there could have went to shit in that box. That was a risk, but you took that risk and boom, and now it's going to pay you dividends for the future because you did that risk. And not everybody's open to that opportunity because they want to do everything perfect. And one of the biggest things that I always push for the team members or the people that I coach and mentor in business, or even clients that we work with, is never let the pursuit of perfection stop progress, right? You never want to be, nothing's ever going to be 1,000% perfect. So if you at least try things, you could have maybe sent her that box and everything was all shit in there. But at the end of the day, maybe you just gave her a refund and said, I'm so sorry, here you go. And now you know you're not ready yet, right? So there's always learning, there's no losing. And I want everybody to understand that. And thank you for sharing that. Is there any, so we have about 10 minutes left and I want to dive into two more things. Is there anything that, obviously in the beginning of any business, right? You had mentioned earlier, your direct quote was, I think about how to sell or selling, right? And a lot of people come into business and they either love a certain thing, they're so passionate about it, but they don't have their salesman hat on, right? Or they think that they're not salesman or saleswoman, right? When in all reality, everybody's always selling, right? When you met your husband, you were selling yourself, right? When we meet friends for the first time or when we meet colleagues, we're selling, right? We're selling ourselves, we're selling our brand, and a personal brand at that point. But the biggest thing though is I wanted to ask you, how did you find yourself, I'm assuming so, but did you find yourself in any sort of situations where you faced rejection? And maybe some of the B2B, coffee shops or restaurants that you went to, denied you or rejected you or said, hey, no, we're not, this is not a good fit for us, or they tried it, maybe didn't like it. Did you find yourself in that position, and what was the course of action after that?
Of course, yeah. I got to tell you that I got a lot of rejection. I've always had more rejection than success in the initial 6 months of starting this, and that's normal, and I was okay with that.
Totally.
I think it's a data point. It kind of pushes you to do better and improvise, and I'm okay with that. So I've definitely had a lot of setback. When I started doing and selling to coffee shops and everything, right, and approaching them, let's say, a lot of coffee shops said, oh, you know what, this is something that it's too specific, or it's too colorful, or it's too, I don't know, it doesn't work for us, or maybe it doesn't align with their vision, and that's okay.
Right.
And
right.
I will tell you something though. There is this one bagel shop, and I had reached out to these people, and she's a wonderful woman. She's a woman-owned business. It's a small family business, let's say. And she told me she believed in me, and I still work with her. I still supply to her, and she told me that she gave me advice actually, and she told me, do not worry. It's not for everybody. You can't please everybody. And I really take that advice with me every day I wake up, because it's very easy for us, especially in the world we're living in through this pandemic, right? It's very easy to be shattered and say, oh my God, like people don't, they're saying no, they're not going to carry my product. Where am I going to go? You kind of question these things, right? And we're all human beings. We all want acceptance at some point. But that's not all roses, especially in a business. If you're trying to grow it, you're going to have to face that rejection. So I've faced more rejection than, success, I would say. But I think that's kind of made me the person I am today, where I'm okay with that. And it doesn't bother me, Let's say there's a business and I approach them and they say, okay, you know what, this is not for us. It's okay. That doesn't make you bad. That doesn't make my product bad. It's just not okay. And we move on, So I think that's something that whenever I talk to people, I always tell them, you got to be thick-skinned. And
yes.
I got to tell you, I wasn't thick-skinned. I used to take it personally.
Yeah, of course.
There's something wrong with my product, or, am I doing something wrong? But I think you got to take it with a grain of salt and improvise and be okay with that. And I think that's something that really, drove me through this process. So rejection for sure. And I love that.
Yeah, listen, that's something, one of the things that I want to just, again, I'm an unpacker here, right? For people listening in, I want to make sure they understand what you're saying. There's a lot of gold in it. When you first start off, like one of the things that at Adapting Social that we focus on, because of like a mentor company to us, right? I think it's so important to find a company or somebody that, when you're starting off, that you want to be like, right? Because there's so much that you can learn from other businesses that have already done what you're doing. I like to call it, they've been through that jungle. Instead of you getting attacked by tigers and lions, we got to find somebody who's already been through that jungle that can get us to the path of least resistance, right? So one of the things that, we do here is, because I can totally agree and attest to when I first started and people gave me feedback, right? Oh my God, I was insulted every time you could be insulted by anything, because when you're so passionate about something and you're giving it your all, you're spending time, money, efforts to do what you're doing, and somebody, quote unquote, shits on it, right? It's like, it's tough, right? It's tough to just take that. And one of the things that I want to tell all the newer, younger, or even people who just still are not good with feedback out there that's listening is, feedback is a golden opportunity to grow and learn. Even if it's feedback that you don't agree with, it might be something that is not actually going to help your business, right? But understanding a different perspective is always a good thing. There's no loss in that, right? There's only gain in feedback. So, that's why, we focus on, in most places, cultures, anywhere in the world, if somebody's giving you feedback, like if somebody came up to me and said, hey, John, your hair looks terrible today, right? I would be offended and I'd be like, wow, screw you, right? Like I'd be pissed off. But, when you look at feedback, you could look at it from a different perspective and say, wow, that person is giving me an opportunity to go fix my hair in the bathroom real quick, as opposed to, wow, screw you for making me feel slightly uncomfortable momentarily. And so, being a developmental, deliberate organization, a DDO, is so important, I think, for any business, because when you get feedback, if you look at it like that way, it's going to help you, not hurt you. And then second, when it comes to that recognition on that first person, I think it's so important. I still remember to this day, and we've been in business a little over a decade. I still work with the same first client I ever got, and just like you said, one baker gave you so many different perspectives. I'll never forget. This is going back over a decade ago. But at one point, I was walking around, and when I was selling websites, I was a sophomore in high school, so I knew nothing. So literally, I went to like one of these stores. I forget what store. I went to Walmart, and I got like an invoice paper sheet, and I literally would write invoices on paper, go to the places, and hand it to them. Because I'd go door to door. And that client said to me, they're like, John, you're a tech guy. Like, why are you not giving me like a PDF invoice? Or why are you not emailing me my invoice? Why can't I pay it online? And to your point with the shipping, right? Like your clients are going to also tell you and give you better ways to do better things. One thing I want to do though is also drop a quick golden nugget. So for a marketing competitive, like brand messaging, one of the things I always tell clients and we do with people that we're working with, or even just like when I'm consulting, is go look at all of the competition in your marketplace, right? Look at all the other bakeries, the other things, and anything relevant to anybody who's listening in your competitive space, and look at the negative comments on Google that these customers are saying about your competitor, right? And then you utilize those words to champion who you are. So as an example, somebody could be ex baker down the block, right? And let's just say Joe Schmo Bakery. And, they might have a one-star review that says, there was a hair in my food, right? And so you utilize that brand messaging on there's never hair in any food right here. And people are like, oh, wow, that's awesome, right? Because, different things like that work. Or like for plumbers, there's different things where it's like plumbers are like, oh, they're not timely, when they're messy when they leave, they don't clean up after themselves. What do you change your language to be then? Oh, hey, we are clean, appropriate, on time, and very professional. Oh, wow, okay, that's awesome. So the people out there that are feeling this pain point, you're able to address that right from the get-go. Now, the last segment here I want to dive into is it comes down to a little bit about you, right? And so we're about to get deep. Are you ready for this?
Ready.
Okay, I figured you were born ready, but I figured I'd ask you anyway. Priyanka, so, when I was in high school, there was, and this is going back, over a decade ago, but when I was in high school, there was a project that one of these professors, kind of gave us, and, they essentially, and it stuck with me, right? So I started doing this on my podcast going back a couple years ago, but I like to put people on the spot, because when they said this to me, it really resonated. And it essentially makes you like reverse engineer what you want your life to be by starting with this conversation at what would your gravestone say on it, right? There's loving mother, there's entrepreneur, great person, honest person. I always like to ask that question because, we're doing what we're doing every day throughout the world and trying to be the best versions of ourselves and help our family and give back. And in between, we have our little craziness that we have. But what is it that you are working towards being remembered by? What is your legacy you want to leave on this planet?
That's actually such an interesting question. I've never thought of that. uh, but I think, for what my life is right now and for what it's been and the direction it's going, I think the word manifest is what really resonates with me. Uh, I'll tell you why. Because I manifested this. I've literally
Right.
manifested this entire quitting my job, starting a business on my own, doing this for myself. So I think she manifested it, she achieved it. I think that's something that really sticks with me. That kind of drives me every day too. I've been a firm believer of it. I've been a firm believer of believing in your goals, your vision, and working towards them. And I think manifestation is such a powerful word that
Right.
it gives me strength. And
Totally.
I think that probably is something that I would love to see. I mean, this is just again the beginning. I have a long road ahead, and I'm
Yeah.
hoping for the best. But I think so far, whatever I have created with this pandemic-born baby, it's definitely manifestation and a lot of hard work.
Yeah. A lot of hard work. I love it. That's so awesome. And so, where can people? So this is the end of the show where we just essentially this is where you plug yourself. Where can people find you on social media, website, the whole thing?
Oh, I'm very active on Instagram. So my Instagram page is basically where everyone always lands. If you Google search Need Some Love NY or New York, you'll basically see a ton of Google reviews, and then you can click on the website, and it'll take you to my Instagram page. So Instagram is where we are very active. All the DMs, all messages that come in are personally responded by me.
Oh, good.
So, yeah. So, one woman show, trying to do this by myself and hopefully hoping to grow. So, yeah, you can find me on social media. I'm very active there. Our website's under construction, so it will be up shortly. But until then, Instagram it is.
Well, listen. Thank you again. Listen, I believe that time is the one asset we don't get back. So you spending it here today with me, with our audience, I am forever grateful for that. Everybody that's listening, take a look, give a shout out to Priyanka. Go look at her Instagram, give her some love. I have to personally say, when I had my podcast director, showcasing, we were doing some investigation, looking through, and I instantly get starving hungry for these things when I look at your Instagram. So everybody take a look, and again, ship 48 states. So obviously, if you like something you see, you have the capability, to do that. And everybody listening, create a great rest of your day. And to Priyanka's example and point, don't let anything stand in your way. When you have a dream, a goal, a vision, seeing it through, I think, is probably one of the most rewarding things, because it's hard work, it's challenging. There's naysayers, there's every rejection point that can happen. But you know what? At the end of the day, you can say that you did it your way, right? And you're doing it for your family, you're doing it for yourself. And that in its own is so rewarding and arguably very cool, right? So everybody, thank you. Priyanka, thank you so much. And everybody create a great day.